Hello everybody and welcome back.
Yes, sir.
Today we're talking
Awaiting
about
affirmative.
Command and Conquer Red Alert,
Affirmative.
the OG
Affirmative.
Red Alert from back in the day.
Affirmative.
A remastered version, if I'm being honest, but like, it's a good game to remaster. This is classic RTS at its finest. It's old school. The controls are a little awkward compared to modern RTSs. There's definitely not as many quality of life things going on. But that doesn't mean that it is not a phenomenal strategy game. Now, I grew up playing strategy games as a kid.
Yes, sir.
You know, I played the old
Yes, sir.
StarCraft, I played
At
Warcraft
once.
3, I played
Affirmative.
Command and Conquer Red Alert
Affirmative.
Retaliation
Very well.
on the PlayStation
At
1.
once.
I remember I had a
Very
lot of
well.
good times with
At
that.
once.
And this game
Agreed.
has the same aesthetic. That game
Affirmative.
is this game,
Agreed.
just with a little
Agreed.
extra in some regards and a little bit less in
At
others.
once.
But definitely a phenomenal game regardless. This
Agreed.
is kind of
Agreed.
where it all began. This is
Affirmative.
where, like, your
At once. Very well.
Soviets versus
Very well.
Allies,
Very well.
you know, strategy game thing started. Now, shit gets a little weird as you
Yes, sir.
progress
Affirmative.
down the path
Acknowledge.
of the Command and Conquer franchise.
Reporting. Awaiting
Especially,
orders.
it depends on which of the two
Affirmative. Affirmative.
series
Affirmative.
is you're going with, honestly.
Yes, sir.
Because, like, there's the regular Command and Conquer games, those follow a totally different story. And then there's the Command and Conquer Red Alert series, which follows its own story. So, like, the Red Alert series is generally the Soviets versus the Allies. And then the normal one is, like, the Allies versus the Brotherhood of Nod, or some shit like that. I don't think they're actually called the Allies in that one. I think they have a different name, but I don't recall it off the top of my head. And, like, by the fourth game, that particular branch of Command and Conquer games got kind of weird and a little bit different. Not necessarily bad, just different. And meanwhile, the Red Alert series kind of ended with the third one, but the third one also got kind of weird because, like, stuff happened. George Takei ended up being the Japanese emperor and involved in the war. So we'll do a video on Red Alert 3. I adore that game. One thing that I do like, and I always have really enjoyed about the Command and Conquer franchise, especially the Red Alert games, is the live action cutscene with live actors. It's very good stuff. You know, it's all very cheesy and very silly and difficult to take seriously, but at the same time, it's all very, very compelling and entertaining and very enjoyable. Like, I remember putting in the Soviet disc in Command and Conquer Red Alert Retaliation on the PlayStation. You had two discs with that game, the Soviet disc and the Allied disc. I put in the Soviet disc to do their story, and I had this old Russian dude yelling at me in Russian. I got no idea what the hell he's saying. I don't even remember if it was actually Russian or just a really heavy accent or what, but, like, goddamn. But we're not here to talk about Red Alert Retaliation. We're here to talk about Red Alert, straight up. So, For the gameplay, you'll notice I'm playing as the Soviets. It's not because of any loyalty to my comrades or anything. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the Mammoth tank. The Mammoth tank is really... That's like the coolest thing that the Red Alert series brings to the table. You know, like any kind of like war fantasy kind of thing that anyone seems to have about like just building cooler war machines, the Mammoth tank has been high on the list of anyone who's familiar with what it is. So if you're unfamiliar with the Mammoth tank, its premise is very, very simple. It's like twice the size of a normal tank. More, actually. It's probably a little more. So it's probably like 2.5 Abrams tanks. Let's just go ahead and say that the Allied medium tank, or heavy tank, actually, I think is what it's called in the game. No, it's a medium tank. Yeah. Let's just say the Allied medium tank is like the equivalent to the Abrams tank in real life, right? Which is the tank that we use, if I'm not mistaken, still today. I'm not like a super big modern tank buff. But the last tank I really, did any homework on was the Panzer, because that thing was a technological marvel for the time. But anyhow, we'll assume that the Allied heavy tank is about the same size as an Abrams, and we know about the size of what an Abrams is compared to like a Toyota Corolla or something. We know that it's considerably bigger than that car. We know it's considerably bigger than your Ma's old Suburban she used to have back in the day. But a Mammoth tank is like bigger, like a lot bigger, like a whole lot bigger. And it doesn't just got one big ass gun. The draw to playing the Soviets in these Command and Conquer Red Alert games isn't being a communist. It's having tanks that have 2 guns, 2 cannons instead of 1. How do you improve your firepower? You double down on your cannons. I don't actually understand why that's not a thing in real life. I'm sure there's reasons that make a lot of sense, and I'm sure that there's some sort of reasoning behind having 2 cannons on your tanks being just massively dangerous for the people inside of it. Having 1 cannon on your tank is massively dangerous for the people on the inside of it. If that some bitch misfires and detonates in the cannon, everyone in that tank is dead, as far as I know. So like, tanks are dangerous, man. It don't matter if you're using them, if you're next to them, if you're fighting against them. It don't matter. If they're around, they're dangerous to somebody. And that's just that. But still, I think that we can all agree, for the most part, the tanks are kind of cool. Like, they're cool pieces of machinery. Whether or not war is good in any given circumstance, and generally speaking, I don't think that war is a good thing, it does make for good video games. It does make for good action in video games. If war didn't exist, if tanks didn't exist, we wouldn't have Halo. We wouldn't have Command and Conquer. We wouldn't have Call of Duty. We wouldn't have Battlefield. We wouldn't have a lot of shit. So, like, whether or not you agree with the wars going on in the world, you can't deny that warfare has had a huge influence on entertainment. There's so many movies and video games and books and songs and entire albums that have everything and anything to do with war in some capacity from some era. So, and like, let's say you're a sword nerd, you're a big fan of like katanas and stuff. I'm a big fan of swords. I like katanas and stuff. But those are instruments of war in the same sense that a tank is.
Very well.
It's just that they're not a tank. It's a small piece of steel that is sharpened with the intention of hurting somebody. So, but we're getting so far off track here, it's ridiculous. Anyway,
Yes, sir.
two guns on the tanks is the big reason to use the Soviets. I've been a firm believer that they are the stronger of the 2 factions to play as in these old Command and Conquer Red Alert games, because not only do they have the Mammoth tank, which is hands down, by and large, without question, the best vehicle in the entire game for being aggressive, for base defense. It is head and shoulders above everything else as far as just being the best tank in game by like a really, really large margin. It is expensive. It is expensive, but it's worth it, honestly. That said, the Soviets also have Tesla coins, which are arguably the best base defense. I don't know if they zap down aircraft, but they're good against tanks. They're good against soldier infantry. So what else can you ask for? Your other defense option is flame turrets, which have considerably less range and are not quite as good against vehicles, but they're very, very good against infantry. Who would have thought? Humans and our fleshy meatbag selves are quite weak to both electricity and fire, and the Soviets have harnessed both of those things as weapons to do damage to our fleshy meatbags. Who would have thought? Meanwhile, the Allies, they have more conventional and inexpensive warfare options. They have small and medium tanks that fire with, unfortunately, only one cannon. You know, they got jeeps, they got APCs to carry around troops, you got your rocket troops, you got your riflemen, you got grenadiers, you got engineers, which in this game function to actually commandeer buildings or as a full heal for buildings. You know, you got all kinds of good stuff. But you don't have anything super dope like the fucking Mammoth tank. That said, I do believe the Allies do have a certain building that allows you to see the whole map. And that's a pretty considerable advantage if you pop that early enough. Like, if you pop that before everybody knows where everybody else is, you've got a rather considerable intelligence advantage. So that's a thing. And also, given the considerably less expensive vehicles and stuff that make up the main bulk of your armor forces, it's not hard to overwhelm a small group of Mammoth tanks. Now, a small group of 5 Mammoth tanks can be catastrophic for an army, but if you throw enough smaller tanks at it, eventually they'll win. Eventually you'll eventually be rid of the 5 Mammoth tanks after you've thrown enough tanks at them. Plus, if you're playing the Allies, you could always take a Soviet war facility over with your engineers and just build your own damn Mammoth tanks. Now that's a thought right there. Build your own damn Mammoth tanks. Holy crap. And then you can just have everything from the dinky-ass little Allied tanks to the medium tanks to the heavy tanks to all the way up to the Mammoth tanks. You got boom. You got all the boom. Every boom that you could ever want. Graphically speaking, though, this game looks good. It looks really good. You know, you can toggle, you can use the spacebar. It tells you right at the beginning of your first game. You can use the spacebar to toggle between graphics settings. Whether you want to have it look like it did back in the day, or you want it upscaled for modern, you know, graphics capabilities. I obviously am going to keep it upscaled because it looks better. But like, you can't deny that, like, while it's not the most impressive game visually, you know, by today's standards, it is still by and large a good looking RTS game. It looks good without taxing your hardware all too much. You should be able to play this game on most average computers for extended periods of time and find yourself having no issues running it, no issues with things running hot. I mean, even a 1066 gigabyte graphics card should be able to run this game with like an older Core i5 processor for hours on end. Hours and hours and hours on end. You also get super weapons like nukes. I don't know what super weapons the Allies get. I've admittedly not played as the Allies in a very long time in any of the Red Alert games. I generally play as the Soviets unless I'm playing Red Alert 3. Then I play as the Japanese because they get Gundams. But like I said, that's going to get its own video. But at the end of the day, you know, hey, it's a fun game. It's a fun game. It absolutely requires a bit of strategy. It absolutely does. And I like that. Of course, you could always do what I did for this game, for this gameplay, and that is literally just build tanks until there's just too many tanks for the enemy to overcome. And considering how many of them were Mammoth tanks, you know. Plus, I nuked them. That's a hard pill to swallow. But anyhow, thank you guys for coming on this journey through fantasy warfare. with me through a game from my childhood that I grew up loving dearly, and I still to this day have a very special place in my heart for games like this and StarCraft and stuff. RTS games were my shit back in the day. You know, we did a game on Age of Empires, or a video on Age of Empires rather, and I mentioned even in that video that Age of Empires is something special to me. You know, it's something I care deeply for because it's just it's just such a good experience. Honestly, there's so much to enjoy about it. You know, these games are very simple, but like chess is pretty simple, and then you dig in, and then you're like, but is chess really simple? And that's what I like about strategy games, because it's easy to pick them up, but it's very difficult to master them. And again, I already said it, but thank you guys for coming on this journey with me. I hope you guys had as much fun as I did recording this and making this video. I had a blast revisiting this game. I picked it up on a summer sale. It was very inexpensive. I already had it on the Origin store, but like I just want to support the idea of remastering the whole franchise. I think all of the games could do for a more modern remaster, even the more recent ones. More directly, I want to be able to play them online again. Rest in peace, Westwood Studios. Rest in peace, Command & Conquer Red Alert 3 servers. I'd like to play that with friends. You can play this online with your friends. It comes in a bundle. The remaster on Steam is actually the first game of both Command & Conquer franchises together. So you get the regular Command & Conquer and Command & Conquer Red Alert at the same time. It's a good deal. And with that said, be kind to each other, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Feel free to give this video a like, a comment, subscribe to me if you think I've earned it. Hell, give it a dislike if you think I've earned it. Feel free to grief that bell button a little bit. I've taken up enough of your time, so I will fucking see you later.
Mission accomplished.